Gavin.
Louie.
We have a date with Destiny. And she ordered lobster.
I know what that's from. What is that from?
I want to say that is from Mystery Men.
Yes.
Which I saw on purpose.
Have you never seen it before?
I actually had.
I was going to say, because I'm old enough to have seen it in the theater.
I didn't see it in theaters, but I was a child and I saw it. And I mean, that was when, like, every comic book superhero thing to me was cool.
Okay, and I thought you were going to say it's when every comic book superhero thing was coming out, and I was like, no, that predated.
This was when it was, like, all just, like, very, like, I was like, yes, all superheroes. And so I saw this movie going into it thinking, like, it's going to be awesome. And it fucking wasn't, because I was a kid wanting it to be awesome, and it was like Ben Stiller making jokes.
Yeah, he's the worst bit of it.
We think you did something bad to Captain Amazing. We would like you to tell us where he is.
Captain who? His name does not ring any bells, Miss Me.
I don't like your tone, Frankenpuss. And do yourself a favor, don't punch my clock, because I'm a Panteras box you do not want to open.
It is Pandora.
Please don't correct me. It sickens me.
You guys never learn, do you?
Anyway.
Welcome to the Mixed Reviews.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, I'm Gavin.
I'm Louie, and that was like a long setup for a joke that was meh.
We're a film podcast in which we talk about things in the film industry. Sometimes as an actor, sometimes as a director, sometimes writer. And this time
we're talking about super teams in film.
Yes.
And this is, I guess, pegged to that trash monster of a movie, Justice League.
The opening of Justice League.
Right.
And it seems to be a smaller opening than anyone expected.
Did you... Can we stop talking about openings, Gavin? First of all.
It's because, as an audio-only podcast, they can't see the faces I'm making.
Did you see Justice League?
I did not, and I feel good about that, I'll be honest.
I went on a date yesterday, and bless his soul, I was like, listen, I need to go see Justice League. I'm so sorry. And I
like that you're like, I need to. And I was like drinking at a bar after going to an exam at 7 p.m. And I was like, do I see Justice League? No,
I'm fine.
Another old fashioned, please. Thank you.
So the movie's happening and he's like, do we know what those boxes are? I was like, no, we don't know. And like the entire movie's like dragging on. It finishes and we were leaving and like these kids, these precious children, they were like, wait.
I do believe the children are our future.
They are, yes.
Correct. Other lyrics by Whitney Houston.
Yes. They were like, wait, there's like a scene at the end. And I was like, oh, thank you. I don't care.
Yes,
I don't care.
Did you see that there is a Justice League porn parody?
Yes.
And
with Manila.
Yeah, they got Manila to play
fucking
Wonder
amazing.
Woman. That's casting. I'll be honest, something bad happens to Gal Gadot. Cast Manila.
Manila's perfect. Just put her in.
Yeah.
Manila Luzon.
No one will know.
We love you, girl.
Keep going.
Mm-hmm. You're making it. But yeah, Justice League is trash. I'm sure we'll talk about it more later as the episode's going. Oh,
before we move into our super teams, we should cover some old business.
Last episode, we talked about Mr. Dancing Queen himself, Sam Rockwell.
That was such a good episode. I must admit, and people really liked it. They like, not to talk about numbers, people dug that episode.
Not to talk about the metrics, but if we dig in, I loved that episode too. And what I love the most is you fucking lost the poll, Gavin.
I did lose the poll, but you know what? First of all, stiff competition. I actually really like how people voted.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I would like to believe most of these people just have not seen Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. So your homework, folks, go see Confessions of a Dangerous Mind.
I mean, that's what you want to believe.
Yes.
People probably just really like Moon. Because Moon came out overwhelmingly as 52%.
Listen, Louie, I cried myself to sleep last night. I'm not going to do it again.
You told me, how many times have you watched Confessions of a Dangerous Mind?
Probably like 4 or 5 over the years, but like in college, at least 3 times. Yeah.
Incredible. Long Dogs. Surprisingly, Long Dogs came out at 21%.
Yes.
Which is a weird-ass movie, but good. My pick, The Way Back, got 18%, and your pick, Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, got 9%. Also, a strong backlash from folks who really wanted some Hitchhiker's Galaxy.
And Galaxy Quest. Both of his, like, big
sci-fi
ventures, where the funny thing is he's, like, an ensemble person in both of those.
Yeah.
So I wonder if our audience just really loves him when he's, rocking the ensemble.
Yeah, I'm rocking the ensemble life, but also being super hilarious in space.
I do enjoy, we also got a comment today from Rose, and it says he deserved an Oscar nom for Moon, and also just for this scene, and it's the dancing scene for Charlie's Angels.
That's...
And you know what, Rose? You're not wrong.
You're not wrong. I thought Moon would have gotten him a nomination, and I am very surprised he did not. Anyway, that was a fun episode. We love him.
Yes.
And also things of note, I was complaining about how we had to pick, if we were going to do a straight white guy, it was going to be Sam Rockwell. And now that I'm thinking about it, I chose this topic.
Yeah.
Both times I've chosen genre topics, they're like the straightest, most masked topics. I also chose buddy flake movies.
Well, I'll be perfectly honest. We're talking about super teams, and it is very mask for mask. Oh no, he's throwing up. Oh, no.
I was like, pause for laughter, pause for me slitting my wrists. Enough.
I'm very proud of that one.
I'm starting the Injustice League right now. I'm calling the police. But yeah, I don't know. This is like some self-hating shit where I'm like picking these like fucking straight topics. But you know what? I'm subverting the genre, finding what I like.
Yes.
So take that.
Yes. So to get into our topic of super teams, I think we should move into our rewind.
Yes. I did a little bit of research, and also I didn't watch a lot of movies just in the past 2 weeks because I've seen bunch of them.
Right. You are also traveling. I'm traveling next week.
Yeah.
Sorry, these 2 weeks these 2 episodes might be a little lighter, but that's fine.
But also, I mean, I've seen, growing up, a huge fan of all this stuff. We're both kind of comic book nerds.
Yes.
And so I filled in the blanks, though, with some of the things I hadn't watched.
And going in, we come up with a topic, and we have 2 weeks to do all of this. And so going in the very next day after we recorded our episode, I began feeling overwhelmed, and I immediately texted you, and I was like ground rule, 4 people or more on the team, because I didn't want to have to include Batman and Robin.
Right.
And
right. We're talking about 4 full teams. So we're not going to be talking about any Spider-Man movies.
Right.
Superman movies.
Right.
So Justice League kind of stuff in that work. So, to get into it, though, I thought it's important to kind of figure out, how superheroes in general got onto the screen. So as long as popular comic books characters have been around, there's been TV and movie adaptations of superhero movies. No team movies were made, though, for a long while. And with the decline of Saturday serials and the comic book industry in the 30s was full of turmoil. Those shows and adaptations kind of went away in the following decades. And so it wasn't until Superman in 1978 that we see our first big budget, movie come out. And that was riding on the success of other sci-fi movies like Star Wars.
Yes.
So I wanted to ask you, though, because I have a big question mark. Is Masters of the Universe a superhero movie?
I mean, technically, yeah. Masters of the Universe was created by a toy company.
Right.
The cartoon Masters of the Universe was created to sell toys by Mattel. And, so, yeah. I mean, I would fit in.
There's a movie.
Yeah.
I put a question mark because
it is a team movie as well, because part of the reason is they cast Dolph Lundgren, who is not very good, but they gave him a team of people that help him throughout the film. I didn't even think about that movie during the.
I was trying to.
This is why I'm glad I set some rules, because because that's a really good one. But I was thinking the G.I. Joe films are technically super team movies, because even though they're people, they're doing incredibly extraordinary things.
Right.
So,
also a thing as I was going through, I was kind of shocked that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is also one of the first team superhero movies that came out, and that was in 1990.
I'd like to invite you all in, but I really don't have anything to offer you guys except for frozen pizza.
Let's go for it! You said the magic word.
You guys eat pizza?
Doesn't everybody?
Yeah, well, all right,
Hey, did she say pizza?
So you live in an antique store?
Yep, pizza.
above, actually.
Also, a fun fact about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, for a very long time, it was the highest grossing independent film of all time.
Yeah.
And most people don't realize that. And one of the things that unseated it was Iron Man. Because when Iron Man was made, Marvel was an independent studio.
Love that. So yeah, I actually wrote that down. And just like a quick little fun fact, the turtle costumes were developed by Jim Henson's Creature Shop, and that was one of the last projects that Jim Henson worked on before he died.
Yeah.
In 1994, The Crow became the first independent comic superhero film that established a franchise. Not a team movie though, so we're not going to discuss that.
Crow's untapped potential there.
Power Rangers, the first movie came out in 1995. That was a very early adaptation of a team movie. And so I brought up The Crow though because this is like the beginning of a huge like wave of superhero movies that started coming out. So with The Crow's success, Spawn came out. And with all these darker things coming out and with like not super mainstream heroes, Men in Black comes out in 1997. And Men in Black was, so Marvel bought Malibu Comics.
Right.
And they put out...
Which, by the way, Marvel, please bring back Malibu Comics. As a lifelong comic book fan, I really like that. I love Ultra Force.
Quick aside. So it's because of Spawn and also Blade, I might add, in 1998. Or Men in Black in 1997, Spawn in 1997, Blade in 1998. And people were starting to realize, oh shit, these can be successful. And thinking about it, like, Spawn, Men in Black, and Blade were not like top tier, go to.
And that's the thing that's interesting about them, because even if you go back to like 89, which was Burton's first Batman, he's a mainstream character. He had already had a TV show in the 60s, and like, admittedly, Burton changed the way people thought about him, but it wasn't like, clearly, The Crow works because Batman's laid the groundwork, but it's an independent thing and it's able to do something else. You also could put in The Mask in there, which is a sort of subversion of what it did. The Mask was a Dark Horse Comics character, and he was like homicidal and violent and gross. And I remember my dad bought me those comics after the movie, and it was like I couldn't bring them to school.
Yeah, inappropriate.
It's super inappropriate.
After I saw Spawn, I was trying to look for it on like. We had like a trial version of HBO at the house. Yeah. And like I tried
the cartoon. Animated vaginas everywhere.
Literally. And I remember my parents had taken me to see Spawn in theaters or something. And so at home they're like, what are you watching? I was like, oh, don't worry, Mom and Dad. I saw this at theater already. And then I was like, this is not what I saw in the theater. It was so like gruesome and definitely
graphic.
I should not have been watching it as a kid. And I guess so of these things that we're talking about, Men in Black counts.
Yes. Yeah. Even though, technically they're two, but it's an entire network of people. Right. So
I'll let it pass.
Jury says.
Right. And so through all this, Spider-Man's coming around in 2002.
Yes.
Spider-Man becomes huge. And that just like fucking, and that is laying everything down, 20th Century Fox then gets the rights to, X-Men. And X-Men in 2000 becomes a hit. And so literally the 2000s, mid-2000s was just like a fucking onslaught of all these movies. You got the Fantastic Four movies, you get all the X-Men sequels, you get The Watchmen, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, Daredevil, Elektra, New Catwoman, all these fucking movies based on comic books. And that leads us to 2006 when Marvel establishes their line of credit with Merrill Lynch, and they decide that they're going to fucking make their own movies.
Right.
And I mean, of course, they don't have like X-Men or Spider-Man, but it starts this fucking like huge wave of what we now know is the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which leads up to the Avengers, which is probably like the modern grandfather of like these team up movies.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's sort of the team up films that have come since have sort of found a way to pattern themselves off it. And it's everything from properties that were already established that had already had films. The new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from 2014 couldn't exist without the Avengers, which is funny because they'd already existed.
Yeah. Exactly. And I'm only talking about like these, like, so when you think about Iron Man movies, Thor movies, Captain America movies, Hulk movies, these were all laying the groundwork for the ultimate team up movies, in the Avengers. Then you get Guardians of the Galaxy, which is another like, team that Marvel said, let's fucking go for it.
And it's funny because, what's interesting, I have a couple of reference books with me as well. And, what's interesting is Marvel, if you want to talk about like the comic book movies specifically, Marvel has always been ahead of DC by their one trump card, which is they have always been interested in a coherent universe.
Yeah.
Marvel under Stan Lee in the 1960s. I mean, Jack Kirby deserves a lot of credit for this as well, but Stan Lee's one big idea over everything else was a coherent universe, which DC had been releasing comics since the 30s and still hadn't established. People would cross over, but it wasn't like a continuity matter.
Yeah.
And Lee made sure that Marvel had sort of continuity. So when they started making Marvel films as an independent company, they decided they were going to apply that to them as well. The idea to do that with DC came along much later after Marvel had already made at least
wild.
6 or 7 films.
Yeah, it's wild thinking about when Iron Man came out, right off the bat, they had S.H.I.E.L.D. ready to go. Nick Fury was ready to go at the end of it.
You think you're the only superhero in the world? Mr. Stark, you become part of a bigger universe. You just don't know it yet. Who the hell are you? Nick Fury, director of S.H.I.E.L.D. I'm here to talk to you about the Avenger Initiative.
In 2006, they were like, this is going to happen, all the way now to Captain America Civil War, which is a team-up movie with a shit ton of characters.
Is it 7? It might be 7. Anyways, I digress.
So, and then we get, DC trying to catch up with, Suicide Squad came out in 2016. Right. There was the Fantastic Four reboot, Avengers 2, which was, there was a Power Rangers reboot.
Yes.
And then I also wrote down, there are also some other non-traditional or hybrid or animated movies. The Powerpuff Girls movie came out in 2002.
Oh, that's I didn't even think about that.
Which I guess is technically 3, but whatever.
Yeah, but that's
The Incredibles came out in 2004 to wide acclaim.
The Incredibles came out in 2004 being the best Fantastic Four movie.
Absolutely. 10,000%. Fantastic Four wishes it was Incredibles. Yeah. There was Sky High in 2005, which was a combination of high school movie and superheroes. There was Zoom with Tim Allen, and it was a combination of a family drama and
a school.
Big Hero 6 came out in 2014, which was Disney's kind of Japanese anime.
But it is also a Marvel property.
Yeah. And then there are the parodies. So there's Mystery Man in 1999 and the specials in 2000, which is wild to think about because I feel like those movies came out way ahead of their time. Yeah. It's imagine a parody now with so much content to go through all these movies, as opposed to in 1999, 2000, X-Men just came out in 2000. There was not any of the...
And that's what's interesting, too, is it seems like the superhero parody has now been relegated to the independent film, which is a little strange because when you think about superhero films, you think about, live, spectacle and huge budgets and everything. And there was a couple other low-budget parodies I found, and now I can't think of the names of them, something with capes and whatnot. But it's funny that, it's all of these very low-budget...
Right. I almost just... Mystery Men, among rewatching it, when I was rewatching it, I thought it probably would have landed a lot better had it given more time for the genre to expand. Because back then it was kind of like they're yelling at nothing that's happened yet.
Right. It's funny because you look at the design and style and it's very clearly influenced by the Joel Schumacher Batman films and everything.
Yeah, totally. It's very zany and crazy or whatever, as opposed to maybe a little not relevant, but thinking about the Scary Movie franchise parodying horror films, there was so much to go through. Unfortunately for them, in 1999, who were they making fun of?
Right.
They were making fun of the old Superman movies, the old Batman movies. There was not
it was that. It was mostly the Schumacher Batman film. Yeah, and exactly. I agree with you. I wish there'd been, because there really is such an ability to mine.
Right. It's almost like they were making fun of companies at the time were certainly snapping up properties. Yeah. And there's a big joke in Silent Bob and Jay when they're everything's being bought up right now, but nothing had come out yet. Yeah. So it's kind of they're making fun of they bought Daredevil and whatever. But those movies wouldn't come out until years later, which is just kind of silly. And I wish there was a good parody out now, because it seems like it's ripe for it. That's all I have.
Real quick, just because I did bring these books and I don't want them to go to waste. Right now I have this book in front of me called Slugfest, Inside the Epic 50-Year Battle Between Marvel and DC. It's by Reed Tucker. It just came out in October. If you're interested in that sort of thing. I just want to mention on the origin of the superhero team, in comic books. The official version goes like this. One day in 1961, Goodman was playing a friendly game of golf with DC's Jack Leibowitz when Leibowitz began bragging about the sales of his new Justice League of America, a title launched in 1960 that combined the company's marquee heroes, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and The Flash, into one powerful super team.
Then Martin Goodman came back from his golf game with tales of the Justice League sales.
Stan, I want you to make up a group of heroes, because I think that's what's selling today.
Stan asked his wife Joan for advice.
She said, well, why don't you just once do a book the way you would like to do it instead of the way they want you to do it?
She's like, well, you're going to quit anyway. Just do it. Stan Lee took the problem to his sometime collaborator, Jack Kirby, and they came up with the Fantastic Four.
Inspired by the space race between America and Russia, 4 people who don't always get along try to beat the commies to the moon. Their rocket is bombarded by cosmic rays. The quartet crash land, and they've acquired superpowers. They team up, but they still don't always get along.
Mr. Fantastic would over-explain everything, the way I tend to do. The Thing would say, will you shut up, we got it already, and he and the Torch were always arguing and fighting.
The Thing hated being the Thing, and the idea of superheroes hating being a superhero was really a novelty, and it produced a lot of psychological richness, at least comparatively speaking, that had not been seen in comic books before. And so it was with the creation of the Fantastic Four that comic books really entered into the modern era.
Both men later insisted they never played golf together. Another version finds Goodman's hitting the links with the head of his distributor, Independent News. Still another circulated by the freelancers of the day has the crafty Goodman learning the sales information from spies planted within Independent. Whatever the case, the outcome was the same. Goodman said, hey, maybe there's a market for superheroes. Why don't you bring out a team like the Justice League? We could call it the Righteous League or something, Stan Lee recalled in 1977. I worked for him and I had to do what he wanted, so I was willing to pull out a team of superheroes, but I figured I'll be damned if I was just going to copy DC. And it's funny, I have another book in front of me that talks about the creation of Fantastic Four, because really the first two were Justice League and Fantastic Four. And this is from the prologue of a book that came out in 2015 called Marvel Comics: The Untold Story by Sean Howe. It said, it took a few days of jotting down 1 million notes, Lee would remember years later, crossing them out, jotting down 1 million more times until we finally came up with 4 characters that I thought would work together as a team. I wrote an outline containing the basic description of the new characters and the somewhat offbeat storyline and gave it to my most trusted and dependable artist, the incredibly talented Jack Kirby.
He took what Stan was doing, and Stan, it's not like Stan was made to change. Stan was still doing his monster stories, except that these monsters turned into heroes. And it worked. Who would have predicted it? I can't even imagine.
Some people say that the initial plan was, okay, we'll revive Captain America and the Submariner and the Human Torch. Other people say Stan had a vision. Other people say Jack had a vision. It's a little difficult to sort through all these things. But at some point, Stan and Jack put together the first issue of the Fantastic Four. And it had certain elements in it of the strip Jack had just done for DC called The Challengers of the Unknown. It had certain elements of the 40s timely comics. They brought back the Human Torch. But it had a lot in it that nobody had done in comics before. It was a very fresh, new kind of comic. And it caught on.
Somewhere along the line with the FF, Jack broke all the boundaries. You know, he just exploded. His imagination took off. What a vehicle the FF was for him, you know, and he created the FF, you know. And anybody who thinks otherwise doesn't understand Jack Kirby, because you think Stan Lee could have created the FF? No. Stan was the instigator, and frankly, if Jack had written it, it would have been a bust.
Marvel was on its ass, literally, when I came around. They were practically hauling out furniture, Kirby said. They were beginning to move, and Stan Lee was sitting there crying. I told them how to hold everything, and I pledged that I would give them the kind of books that would up their sales and keep them in business. This much is certain. In the middle of 1961, Lee and Kirby threw together 25 pages of story and art attached to a crude logo, and thousands of copies of Fantastic Four #1 were shipped off to take their place on newsstand tables and spinner racks across the country, wedged between the latest issues of Millie the Model and Kid Colt Outlaw. And I just think that's really interesting that the creation of superhero teams was financially motivated from the beginning by DC. It was like, let's take all of our characters, put them together in a book, and it'll sell more. And then the like creation of the modern way of doing it, because the thing that set the Fantastic Four apart from Justice League is the Justice League weren't defined characters as they were like stalwart and righteous and Fantastic Four were a family and they fought amongst each other constantly. And I think that's more of where you see the genesis of the current super team, those internal struggles, those family dynamics and everything. But yeah, I just wanted to bust out these books.
Can I say really quickly that I appreciate your Stanley voice?
Yeah, I thank you.
That was very...
Excelsior! But anyways.
That's like, you could be a voice actor for like, I don't know, a fighting game with Stan Lee and like Jack Kirby.
I could be a voice actor in a small Pan-Pacific nation.
Finish room, and then Stan Lee's like, Excelsior! And then he'll get him.
Yes.
Should we go into our picks?
Absolutely.
Let's do our 5-star reviews.
Okay.
I kind of already knew what my pick was going to be, and I rewatched this movie, and I was like, yes, correct, yes. And this is the most basic answer, and I don't want you to judge me, and America, do not judge me, but my pick is Captain America Civil War.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm shocked, and I am judging you, but anyways.
From 2016, directed by the Russo brothers, and I remember this movie came out right after Batman vs. Superman.
Yes.
Which is...
Or right before, around.
Yeah.
Maybe it was right after, yeah.
I think it was after, because I saw Batman vs. Superman and thought it was the worst thing I'd ever seen in my life. And I saw this right after, and you know what, here's the thing. I saw Batman vs. Superman and I was trying to give it the benefit of the doubt. I was like, you know what? DC had a lot of work to do in this movie. They're trying, like, there's so much to do, and like, I guess, how could they make this movie good when they're trying to like lay all this groundwork? How could they? And then I fucking see Civil War, which has like 80,000 characters in it, and cut to me crying while fucking Iron Man and Captain America are beating the shit out of each other. I'm emotional. I was like, holy shit. Not only did this movie like do all like the fighting or whatever, it introduced a new fucking Spider-Man. Like,
true.
And not in a like, oh, whoops, there he is. Like a small little way. It was like, here's fucking Tony Stark walking over to Queens and like having a whole scene talking to him out of costume and then having him fight in that big airport battle. And I was like, that was completely satisfying. And it's so rare now when you're going to movies and like, especially these comic book nerdy things where it's like, oh, well, they say they're going to have X character come out or make a cameo or whatever. Those are rarely satisfying. Seeing Spider-Man in this was actually really, I was like, oh, this kid is actually really good. And I'm not sad that Andrew Garfield is gone now, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway, Civil War is based on a really popular, famous storyline in the comic book world, and it's essentially about there's layers to it. There's the politics of who is in charge of the Avengers, you know, and what happens when shit goes awry and people are injured. And Tony Stark is feeling guilty about, you know, the people that died in Sokovia in Avengers 2, and Captain America has gone on a mission, and Scarlet Witch, her powers have gone awry, and they didn't see a bomb, and lots of people died, including people from Wakanda, and so it's an international incident. And so in the comic books, it's almost purely political. It's kind of always like unmasked or not. The movie takes it onto a lot of different levels, where it's...
The movie has a much harder time like establishing that, I find, because in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, secret identities don't really matter.
Right. And so in the movie, it's less about secret identities and it's more about who is in charge of the Avengers, and the solution that the government decides is, you know, the UN will have a task force and they'll tell them where to go and what to do.
Right.
Captain America is like, I'm not really feeling that. That's kind of fucked up. We should be the ones who are deciding this stuff. Tony Stark is feeling guilty about, you know, the lives lost in their previous battles. And so that's kind of like the genesis. But then there's all this like layers of the relationships that are happening. Yeah. And while this is entirely going on, I'm waiting for who's the big bad.
Right.
Who is the big bad guy? Because almost in all, like, good guys fighting good guys, in the end, it always is like, they're fighting each other, and then they realize they need to come together to fight the greater evil.
Yeah.
And so I'm waiting for it. I'm fucking waiting for that Nemo guy, played by Daniel Brühl, who is, like, so sexy and so villainous. I'm waiting him for, like, to reveal...
That's actually in his resume.
Yeah. Villainous and sexy.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for him to, like, reveal the big master plot, the big thing. And it never fucking comes because, like, this was the first time I've seen a movie like this where it's not about that. It literally is not. Same thing with him. He just wants vengeance. He's grieving over the loss of his wife and kid in that battle that Tony's feeling guilty about. And the whole idea of, you know, Tony and Cap, even though they have these, like, differences over, like, who should manage the Avengers, in the end, they're really fighting because they do not think the relationship is what it was.
He's my friend. So was I. Stay down. Final warning. I could do this all day.
Spoiler alert, sorry about it. Winter Soldier is revealed to have killed Tony's parents.
Yeah.
And so Captain America is like, it wasn't him, he was brainwashed. And Iron Man's like, wait, you fucking knew about this?
Right.
And he's like, sorry about it. I thought it was gonna, like, you know, and so that...
To me, that's the weirdest twist in the movie, is that Captain America knew about it.
He was trying to spare him, whatever.
Yeah.
I could not believe. I was like, holy shit, that's what we're fighting about? Like, and it was such an emotional, like, sucker punch, because I thought it was gonna be like, you know what, guys, we're here to, like, do the one good thing to, like, save the world.
And it works on a couple levels also because the thing that's been established over the course of many, many films is Tony Stark is ego-driven, regardless of if he thinks he's right, if he thinks he's wrong. Like, he does things because they impact himself. And, like, part of his being a superhero is ego.
Yeah.
You know, that Captain America's superheroics are selfless.
Yeah.
And so his concept of saving Tony that pain, he thinks he's doing the right thing by being a better friend and keeping that from him, because he knows in the long run that will only damage Tony and also protect his friend, you know, Bucky from what would happen, because he also knows how easily Tony Stark's ego is fed.
It's such a, like, I mean, it's like such a corny, sappy, and I don't give a fuck. This was not Batman vs. Superman, like, Martha, like,
part of that is, and I do kind of want to question this, part of that is, I think the Martha thing is very stupid, don't worry, and I've, to this day, not seen the full thing of Batman vs. Superman, and I don't care if I ever do, I'll be honest. Which sucks, because I've actually seen every Batman film opening night.
Wow.
And that was the first one I was like, no. Thank you. But,
keep me pure.
Yeah, exactly. But, would you feel the way that you feel for those characters had Tony Stark not been set up over 4 films already, and Captain America hadn't already, or 5 films, and Captain America hadn't already been set up over 4 films? Because that's probably the weakest thing about Marvel movies, is they've gotten to a point where they barely stand on their own.
You need to have the homework done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to be unbiased because not only have I seen other movies,
right?
But
and I'm with you. Right. Like, I'm a fan.
Right. We've read the comic books and we know about it. Yeah, I don't know. There are also other things happening though. It's between Natasha, Scarlett Johansson's character, Black Widow, she does a double cross also, and she has a great scene with Tony when he's like, "Oh, I guess you're always a fucking, like, secret agent, and that's just who you're always going to be." And she's like, "Bitch, he wasn't going to stop." Like, and he thinks what he's doing is right, and it's fine. And so there's all this actual, real internal conflict, as opposed to, you know, like, I don't like the way that you deliver your justice. You know, like, in the end, of course, they all want to do good and save lives. And there's no debating that. And really the debate about, like, who governs that is so secondary to this other thing where it's just like, this is my friend, I need to help him out, and I'm sorry that that fucks you up.
Right.
There's also the Black Panther part of it where he is also seeking vengeance for the death of his father.
He's also a first time introduced character as well, and I actually do think they handle him pretty well.
I just could not believe. After I watched Civil War, I was like, oh. That's how you do, like, there's Ant-Man in this movie.
Right.
There is, like, they bring in Hawkeye in this movie.
I notoriously, but...
the people do know.
Yeah, in my circles, I don't like the movie. I think Ant-Man's a bad movie. Yeah. But I thought he was used really well in this film.
I mean, they bring back Hawkeye for that little second. There's even enough time and space for Peggy Carter to die.
Yeah.
And Sharon to be in it.
Yeah, I don't know if that's necessarily handled the best, but I'll give it to you. But
all I'm saying is it was the same amount of time as Batman vs Superman.
Yeah.
There was 10 more characters involved, and I never was like, I'm bored. What time is it?
And this is just me, and I know I've met other critics who have the same issue. I actually like Civil War as well, so this is not a knock on it because I don't mind. I love serialized television. And that sounds like an insult, but I think the serialization of the Marvel Universe really puts off some critics because they feel that, like, it gets to a point where it becomes inaccessible to the casual viewer.
Sure.
Which is a little weird because most critics are not casual viewers anyways.
Right.
So it's kind of funny that
it's like, you haven't seen like the past 10 movies.
Yeah, exactly. So it always strikes me a little hollow when they complain about that. But at the same time, I mean, I do understand it becomes like I saw the new Thor, which is also a teen movie, weirdly enough, and it's great, but it leaned so heavy into the continuity with its
mythos.
with its prior films, and not just its prior films, but the other prior films.
Doctor Strange movies.
That I was like, wow, if you just walked into this movie, you'd be really confused, but I also enjoyed it. So hey,
and I think also at like just the sugar candy level, seeing like these 10 powerhouse people like walk up on each other, and then seeing Ant-Man for the first time grow super large.
And it's funny because in a way it strikes a similar chord that I'm sure it was striking in audiences in the 1940s when you had like Frankenstein meets the Wolfman or House of Dracula. You know, these films in which you bring together these powerhouse characters that people kind of want to see interact with each other.
It just very much felt like the last thing I'll say about it just very much felt like, holy shit, the payoff was worth it. Like, I have invested in all these movies, and seeing them all here and realize, and their best versions of, like, that we've seen yet, I was like, yes, this was worth the wait.
I was torn between two, but I think I'm going to pick the latter now but I did want to mention mine was going to be the first Avengers film, because I think that really depthly handles, the interactions between characters. It gives them all great moments each, and it doesn't, because each film has only had, except for Iron Man, has only had one film before it, it doesn't rely so heavily on the continuity that's come before in the other films. Most of that stuff comes from Loki, but you kind of get the idea Loki's a bad dude anyways.
Right. You don't need a lot to go into Avengers and appreciate it.
I will say, the opening sequence of Avengers, though, is awful. It's a terrible way to begin a movie. But I think the strongest to date film that's really handled that sort of multiple character super team is X-Men 2.
Love the concept.
X-Men United, the dumbest title.
X2, X-Men United.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's probably the best film Bryan Singer's directed. And let me tell you, I'm not a Bryan Singer fan. In fact, if you were to tell me that X-Men Apocalypse was directed 90% by second unit directors, I'd be like, yeah, sure, I believe it. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. No style? Cool. But X2, the thing that it does is it really doubles down on character work. You really get to experience a lot of the sort of inner turmoil of what it's like to be a mutant. Just to give a basic plot of X-Men 2, the X-Men are now being hunted by a rogue group of military people run by William Stryker, who was involved in the creation of Wolverine, and by that I mean they gave him his adamantium skeleton, and he just wants to eliminate mutants. And what's great about this too, and different than most of the other X-Men films, is it supplies you a villain that's not Magneto. And really the groundwork that they've laid in the previous film, though this movie doesn't rely super heavily on it, with Magneto being the villain, it becomes a great twist when they have to start working with Magneto and Mystique to stop this guy.
The only true Mystique.
Yeah, Rebecca Romaine.
To be clear.
Yeah, exactly.
Jennifer who?
Oh my god, best line reading in the movie is there's a scene towards the end after they've teamed up with Magneto and Mystique and they're all riding in the Blackbird and Magneto keeps staring at Rogue because in the previous film she got her white streak from having touched him for too long and they're whispering to each other, giggling, and
they're such mean girls.
Yeah, exactly.
We love what you've done with your hair.
Hey.
That's what I like.
Camps up. He's like, "What are you gonna do? Scratch it with your claws?"
Yes, Ian McKellen. I think it's one of the most brilliant casts, and I think it's because it's a slightly unexpected cast. I think Halle Berry actually, for the first time, becomes Storm because she's awful in the first X-Men, and it's not just the wig; it's whatever she did. She in the first movie, no one talks about this. She has an accent,
right?
She drops it for the second film, thank God. You have Famke Janssen as Jean Grey and
James Marsden
as Cyclops.
Alan Cumming as Nightcrawler.
And Nightcrawler is hands down my favorite X-Men ever. And
that opening sequence when it's Nightcrawler like.
Speaking of ways to begin a fucking movie.
Yeah, hello?
Nightcrawler attempting to assassinate the president because he's being brainwashed by William Stryker.
So good.
Yeah, is still, and looking at it still holds up. It's a really beautiful and interesting scene. I think there's a lot of really interesting character work. And what's great about the X-Men is, it was, it's a metaphor for civil rights for people that don't necessarily fit in. I could pick up one of these books, but I'll just summarize real quick. It's not known how much Stan Lee and Jack Kirby were really, really, really thinking about that. Like, it's an easy scapegoat. I mean, it's very clear that Magneto has a lot of the ethos of Malcolm X and Professor X has a lot of the ethos of Martin Luther King Jr. and it's two very polarizing ways of looking at the civil rights movement. But it applies itself so well to any marginalized group that wants to fight for their equality, whether, you're fighting sexism, racism, homophobia. And that's the thing that I've always loved about X-Men is they really make you feel what it's like to empathize with the outsider. And that's why I've always loved Nightcrawler because he's the most outside you can get.
There's like a great scene where he's talking to Mystique.
Excuse me. They say you can imitate anybody. Even their voice. Then why not stay in disguise all the time? Look like everyone else.
Because we shouldn't have to.
And that's why the fucking Jennifer Lawrence Mystique is such bullshit. Because real Mystique would never look like Jennifer Lawrence.
And it kills me because it's so clear with the Jennifer Lawrence Mystique that's payment motivated. She's like, if I'm going to be in this fucking movie, I'm not going to wear that makeup. And they're also like, oh, people are paying to see Jennifer Lawrence.
Garbage because Rebecca Romaine is gorgeous.
Gorgeous, absolutely.
And she has such screen presence.
And she has one of the best fight sequences in that movie too. And that's what I mean about everybody gets their moment. You have obviously a lot of stuff with Wolverine and Hugh Jackman. I also think that's really like, he's fine in the first X-Men. Everything about the first X-Men movie is fine. It's base level fine. Mm-hmm. And it really sets the blueprint for the way most superhero films are handled for the next 10 years. But the second movie sort of ups the game by giving everybody, you have a lot of chemistry between Halle Berry and Alan Cumming. Mm-hmm. You have a lot of chemistry between the love triangle between Logan, Jean Grey, and Cyclops. And then you have the kids really being introduced for the first time, which is Iceman, him having to come out to his parents, which is a very funny scene, but also like darkly twinged.
Yeah.
So, when did you first know you were
a mutant? You have to understand, we thought Bobby was going to a school for the gifted.
Bobby is gifted.
We know that. We just didn't realize
We still love you, Bobby. It's just this mutant problem is a little...
What mutant problem?
Complicated.
What exactly are you professor of, Mr. Logan?
Art.
You have Pyro, who's like kind of smaller character in the comic books, but they really made him his own and gave him that arc of like really seeing that he doesn't ever believe he can trust people and believing in Magneto. And everybody's given like a really solid moment, and somehow the movie is still not like 3 hours long.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just really think the second X-Men movie, in terms of the way it sort of left everything off, it's really the progenitor of a lot of that, and I think it's one of the best as there is.
I agree. Hard agree.
Yeah, I don't want to get into the ending, but yeah, it's great. A lot of great action too, an amazing fight sequence.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, were there any other films that you thought of? Because
now off the top of my head, there's just so many. I thought Guardians of the Galaxy, really fun. Visually way more interesting than say any of like the Avengers movies. Really, like Marvel does have like kind of boring looking, like very washed out.
Everything is blue and orange,
right?
And speaking as a colorblind American, it still gets me.
Right,
too,
Guardians was beautiful and like they're really nutso kind of way.
Obviously, we mentioned The Incredibles before.
Oh my god, Incredibles, 10,000%.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of shit went down with Pixar since we did our Pixar episode.
Right.
But the trailer for the second one of that just came out, and I'm really excited for that. I watched this, like, not amazing movie, but, like, really cute kids movie called Rise of the Guardians. It's a animated feature about Jack Frost, who becomes part of a superhero group with mostly Christian effigies. I don't know why.
It's like the Sandman.
Yeah, but also, like, Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny. Hugh Jackman plays the Easter Bunny. Alec Baldwin plays a very Russian Santa Claus. Isla Fisher plays the Tooth Fairy. Jude Law is the Boogeyman, who's the villain. And it's, like, very cute and harmless, and like, I don't know, I didn't hate it, but no kids movie should be over an hour and a half, and it's like close to 2 hours,
Absolutely
and I do not need that. Another one that I really wanted to put in, especially since once I realized that I laid the groundwork for 4, is this movie from 2004, this independent film that I love called Debs. I don't know if you've ever...
Yes, Debs!
Debs has the most adorable lesbian love. I should explain. Debs is like a parody of Charlie's Angels in a way. It's 4 plaid-skirted schoolgirls who are groomed by a secret government agency to become the newest members of an elite international defense group, Debs. And Sarah Foster plays Amy, who is like a sweet, very virginal member of the team, Goody Two-Shoes, and she falls in love with their villain, Lucy Diamond, played by Jordana Brewster, which was
amazing.
My first introduction to Jordana Brewster, and I've loved her forever since, and I know that she's in a lot of bad shit, but in my book, she can do no wrong.
Right, good for her.
Yeah.
Scott, I don't know how this happened to me, but being bad doesn't feel good anymore.
Do you love her? You're willing to give up all this? Life of crime, the whole 9 yards?
Whatever it takes.
All right, then. We're going in.
What?
We got to get her back.
And it was written and directed by Angela Robinson, and there's not going to be a lot of female directors or writers on this list, so I did want to point it out. It's really great. it's very independent, as I mentioned, but please give it a shot. It's kind of great.
Debs, I love that.
Yeah, Angela Robinson, by the way, if you've heard her name recently, it's because she just directed Professor Marston and the Wonder Woman, which is
cool. Yeah.
Which is about the creation of Wonder Woman. So,
how do you feel about Watchmen?
It's fun. I don't love it. I never want to recommend watching a longer Zack Snyder film.
Right.
But I will say I feel the longer cut of it, which is out on DVD and Blu-ray, is probably better. It gives more room to breathe. One of my problems with Zack Snyder has always been he's not a director who's interested in character in any way, shape, or form. And the longer version actually does give some room to the characters. There's a lot of really stupid ridiculousness in it. The fucking scene that's set to Hallelujah is like laugh out loud in the theater. Everybody was laughing when I saw it. But yeah, it's a very okay adaptation of Watchmen.
Yeah, so I had not read it before I watched the movie. I have since read the graphic novel. I thought it was visually very interesting and engaging. Seeing, is it Billy Crudup?
Yes. And even though as I've said, I don't think Zack Snyder's that interested in character work or acting, I think Billy Crudup and Rorschach Can't think of his
Mm-hmm.
name. They both deserve a lot of credit for doing a lot with their roles and being really powerful presences in kind of a mediocre film.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I think Malin Ackerman, who I really like and has done a lot of things post this that I really like, is trash in the movie.
Sylvia Spector, is that her name right?
Yeah. And I think Patrick Wilson is also trash in the movie, and I don't think either of them.
It's hard because like they're both super fucking hot.
Yes,
and I think, and I think Zack Snyder just wanted them to be hot and like really exploits them for their hotness.
But if they could have replaced Patrick Wilson with Jordana Brewster and had Malin Ackerman and Jordana Brewster kiss, is that my fantasy? Am I revealing too much?
All I care about is we got to see Billy Crudup's Blue Wang.
Yeah,
and he's like
that's like CG though. That's probably not Billy Crudup's actual one.
It probably is, so fuck off. Anyway, let's move on to our one-star reviews. My pick is 2003's The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Yeah, it's really bad.
It is beyond bad.
Yeah.
The movie, so The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, I have not read a lick of this comic book, so I did not know anything about it. When I originally watched it as a kid, I was in high school maybe? I was like drawn in and like really excited to watch it because in my like mediocre teen brain, it was like, oh, you've got like Invisible Man, a vampire,
Mina Harker from Dracula.
Right. It's just like all these like Sawyer from America. It's all these like lore characters coming together to like be a team. Upon rewatching it, it is beyond pedestrian and garbage, and I don't know. There once a time
the source material is great, and like it's like modern Alan Moore, which is not always the best, but like modern. But this is really like his bag, and he really gets into the whole like Victorian, like really connecting everything and making it make sense. And like it's dark and it's brooding and it's really interestingly drawn. And I suddenly can't think of the name of the artist, but like he deserves as much credit as Alan Moore.
This was a time when Sean Connery and oh god, what's his name? It's escaping me. Shane West,
whose character is not in the book. By the way,
good,
yeah.
But also like you could tell it was almost like
Kevin O'Neill. Sorry, is the artist on. I hate when people don't credit the artist as well.
This is a time when Shane West was a draw for like teens because he's like dreamy or whatever, and you could just tell that the studio was like, we need like a younger person to help sell this movie, and they were like, here, this, and he's Sawyer, so like, oh, American mythos, whatever. And this was like Sean Connery's last movie before he went into retirement.
This movie caused him to go into retirement.
And
you know what? He fucking passed on The Matrix because he thought that it wasn't going to be, because he was going to play Morpheus.
You fucking idiot.
And
Sean
then
Connery.
He did this movie.
You fucking idiot. So there are so many bad things about this movie. It's essentially, what's his name in this movie? Sean Connery is,
he's, Alan Quatermain.
Yeah.
Of the King Solomon's Mines book.
Right. And so he, like, is in Africa being colonial as fuck, and, the Phantom is, like, stealing shit.
Oh,
and
God, the inclusion of the Phantom.
And he's, like,
gross.
Really gross. And he's, like, he's essentially like bombing the shit out of London and Germany to try and start shit.
Yeah, he's trying to initiate World War I before World War I actually happens.
And essentially it's an arms race. Yeah. And he's the one that has all the weapons and he's going to want to sell to them. The use of like newspaper to like help move the story along is insane. It's like spin, 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 spin. Germany says, not us. Spin, 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 spin. London says, we're gonna get you back. Spin, 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 spin. Like, over and over and over. And not only that, then we get to M to go find Quatermain, and it's like, London and Germany are fighting. And tells us the same information that we just got from the news. Why? This movie holds your hand for every fucking step of the way.
There's so much stupid shit about it too. Like the Invisible Man in the graphic novel is the Invisible Man.
This one is not
from H.G. Wells. Yeah, because they couldn't get the rights
to the name. It's an Invisible Man.
Yeah.
And they changed the name to like Skinner. Also, I was just really uncomfortable with the army of like colonial Indian men who do everything and get mowed down.
Yeah.
You know, they're
It's weird. I will say this. This is one of the very first portrayals of Captain Nemo as actually Indian, even though he is in the book, and yet years and years people have just like white people playing him.
I'm more offended by, there are lines like, bon voyage. The line, so Dorian Gray, played by Stuart Townsend, which, R.I.P. girl, your career, is fighting the vampire lady, and he like, puts the stake through her.
I hoped I'd get to nail you one more time. I didn't think it'd be literally.
And I was like, screaming. I could not, like, the amount of, like, misogyny in this movie.
Yeah.
They make an Invisible Man character touch her ass. I was like, are you fucking real? This movie's beyond bad. It's so.
Can I tell you one simple fact that actually deserves probably like an, oh, honey. Oh, honey.
Sure.
I saw this movie twice in the theaters.
Twice! On purpose.
Yeah. I had other friends who wanted to go, and I can't say no.
Right. You're sad.
But yeah, it's real bad. It's bottom of the barrel.
Real bad. I'm done.
Okay.
Your turn.
My turn?
Yes.
I'm gonna go broad here. I'm giving it to every single Fantastic Four movie that has ever been made. That's 4 movies.
Right, that's 4 movies.
So I'll do this as quick as possible. I'm not going to get into plot specifics of any of them, even though 3 of them have the same plot. There was a Fantastic Four movie made in 1994. It was produced by famed film producer Roger Corman, who is known for making films very cheap and on the fast. And his name is on it. He didn't direct it, though. But it was, like I mentioned, 1994. They got a bunch of cheap actors together. They were going to lose the rights to Fantastic Four. They bought it from Marvel for $250,000.
Holy shit!
And
that's a lot of money for back then.
Yeah, and if they didn't get it started at this by a certain date, the rights were gonna revert back. So they make this cheap, very very cheap run of the mill movie, but some reason gets the Fantastic Four more right than anybody else has.
Really?
But it's still bad. Yeah. They really captured what was, I mean, it's really weird.
I've seen this movie. I saw it.
The 1994 one?
Yeah, I saw
me
it
too.
yesterday.
There's a documentary coming out, and I can't wait, or has come out, and I've not seen it.
You can find it on YouTube.
The
actual film.
Yeah.
And it's wild because, like, Mr. Fantastic, to, like, escape, puts his foot underneath this, like, entrapment device, and, like, just kicks open the thing, and I was like, what?
But the plot of all Fantastic Four movies is they're 4 people. They're caught by a cosmic storm. It gives them powers. There's Reed Richards, who can stretch. He's Mr. Fantastic. The Invisible Woman, Sue Richards. She can turn invisible. She can turn other things invisible, and she basically has telekinesis. There's the Human Torch, Johnny Storm, who's Sue's brother. And he can burst into flame and fly. And then there's Ben Grimm, the Thing, who is cursed to look like an orange rock monster. And I'll give the 1994 version this. I'm still amazed. I mean, you can kind of see where the zipper is, but that costume is still kind of amazing for a movie that's made
when
really
he was talking, I was like, did they just put like a black piece of like something? So like his mouth hole is just like black and it's like, mark, mark, mark. It's also the only movie though that where they show him while he's the Thing to revert back to normal.
Yeah.
And then back into the Thing.
Yeah. Which is not a thing that happens.
Which is not a real thing.
Yeah.
What kind of a thing have I turned into?
Dan?
Reed? What have you done? What have you done?
We're gonna go get some help, Ben.
So that happens.
And it's not released.
It's not released. Exactly.
Anywhere.
Yeah.
Not direct to video, not in theaters, nothing.
Fun fact about it, too. Mark Ruffalo, as an early struggling actor, auditioned for Dr. Doom.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
He would have been great.
He would. I mean, he's great in general. Call me. Flash forward 11 years later. Fox now owns the right to Fantastic Four. They're going through meeting after meeting with many, many different directors. And my favorite pitch was actually the director of Ant-Man, who also directed Bring It On, Reed...
Richards, no kidding.
Yeah.
Reed Wright, isn't it?
No, it's Reed...
Peyton.
Yeah, Peyton Reed, sorry. Peyton Reed, who wanted to do it as like a 1960s family comedy.
Love that.
And I was like, that sounds cool. No. Instead, they go with Tim Story, the director of Barbershop.
What?
I'm not saying that he can't direct something like this, but like what about him made
Fox be like, you know what? Yes.
Exactly. Same story. Family gets caught in cosmic rays. This time Dr. Doom's with them, so he gets the power to turn into metal, but also make magnet stuff. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense.
Electricity, maybe.
Yeah. This cast is Ian Grofield, Jessica Alba, Chris Evans, and Michael Chiklis as the Thing, who's like probably the best casting.
Yeah. I will say real quick, it is so fucking disrespectful that they cast Jessica Alba and made her wear blue contacts and a blonde wig for this.
Absolutely.
Like, if you're gonna cast someone and like do a race bent thing, just let it live.
Yeah.
And also, Jessica, honey, have some self-respect.
Yeah.
She could have said no.
The most inspired casting to me was actually Kerry Washington as Alicia Masters, but then they didn't give her anything to do. Julian McMahon plays Victor Von Doom. He wants revenge against them because he's a big dick. And the other weird, crazy thing about this is it's written by Mark Frost of Twin Peaks fame.
Weird.
Yeah, and it's bad. It's all around bad. It doesn't look good.
It's a very like paint by numbers, like origin story that's like boring.
The comedy, it has a lot of comedy in it, and I will give them points for trying, because that's one of the things about the Fantastic Four is that it is very comedic, because they are a bickering family.
But isn't it like Sue can't control being naked?
Right, exactly. But it's like, it's all, exactly. All the comedy is like super base.
Seems like you and Alicia are doing well. Annoyingly so, in fact.
Yeah, I'm a lucky guy.
Yeah, you are. Question for you, though. How do you guys,
That's none of your business.
Okay, all right, I'm just concerned. I'd hate to wake up one morning and find out she was killed in a rock slide.
2 years later, they made a sequel called Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer, in which they clearly spent all their money on the Silver Surfer, who voiced by Lawrence Fishburne but played by Doug Jones, which I believe was like kind of a blow to Doug Jones's ego because he was not informed that he would be dubbed.
Oh fuck, that sucks.
Yeah, once again, Tim Story, but Mark Frost gets a credit on the screenplay, but Don Payne, who I actually like, who unfortunately passed away a couple years ago, is really a credited writer. And like, it's a slightly tighter movie, but that's not saying much. In this movie, Silver Surfer comes to Earth. He's a herald of Galactus, which is an intergalactic being that eats planets. In this movie, for some reason, it's a cloud, not an actual giant person like it is in the comic books. I guess they thought that was too ridiculous.
Not the Silver Surfer.
But let's throw in a scene in which Reed dances.
I can't remember that, and I feel good about it.
If you're making a superhero movie, don't make your characters dance.
They're not Sam Rockwell.
Yeah, exactly. Just do that for me. And it's a movie that looks all right, mostly because of the Silver Surfer again. The comedy is still really, really fucking basement level. So then finally, 10 years later, we get 2015's Fantastic Four, which I saw at a drive-in theater because at that point that it came out, everybody knew it was a disaster.
Yeah, it was like that production was like it was everyone knew it was a mess. Everyone knew this movie was like millions of reshoots, people wearing wigs and shit to like come back.
So in this version of the film, you have Miles Teller, who is, in my opinion, just
the most punchable face.
Yeah, most punchable face and a personality suck. Like, he just takes everyone down with him. Is Reed Richards. Michael B. Jordan plays Johnny Storm, which was the only casting I ended up liking because it pissed so many people off. And I was like, good, fuck you. Like,
right.
Kate Mara playing Sue Storm and having the most miserable time of her life. And Jamie Bell. I'm so sorry, Jamie Bell.
We love you, Jamie, so much, but why?
And then Toby Kebbell is Victor Von Doom in this version. This steals a lot from the Ultimate Comics. So instead of them going to space and getting the cosmic rays, it's an after effect from traveling to another dimension and then coming back.
Zone.
Yeah. It has a lot of problems. Directed by Josh Trank, famously, who had like a real issue putting it all together.
He wanted to make a horror movie.
Yeah. He wanted to make like a body horror movie. A lot of that doesn't exist in the film, and none of it like is scary or interesting in that way. The character work isn't great. You never really understand. One of the things that's cool about the relationship between Ben Grimm and Reed Richards is Ben Grimm was like a friend of Reed Richards, but he was also a skilled pilot, so he needed to be aboard that spaceship.
Yeah.
In this film, it doesn't necessarily make sense. It like you begin to question why Reed Richards would ever hang out with Ben Grimm. Yeah. Also, a lot of strange character choices, like Ben Grimm's famous, like, quotable line, "It's clobbering time," is a thing that was shouted at him before he was abused.
Yeah.
And so, like, the switch for that. Also, it's interesting when you watch this film because they get their powers and then it flashes ahead.
Yeah, months later.
And it's very clear that the months later is almost all reshoots. And a very easy way to point out the reshoots is Kate Mara is clearly wearing a wig in all of her reshoots. And it's like, you done fucked up that lace front.
Yeah. I feel really bad. I mean, it almost feels like they were like, okay, guys, we're going to do a darker, grittier Christopher Nolan version of Fantastic Four. And I don't know. I get the body of horror kind of thing. Like, yeah, it probably would be fucking scary if you like came back from a universe and your like limbs were like all wobbly and shit.
Hey.
They're gonna send me on a project.
Like Ben?
We should use these powers to do something.
They're not powers. They're aggressively abnormal physical conditions that we're gonna fix. Can you
All right.
turn that off?
And what if they can't? What if it takes more time to get it right? We could be talking years.
I am not going to be a tool.
It just never like delivers on the promise of it. And that probably was like Josh Trank had an idea and a vision and the studio was like, but we're not gonna do that. Sorry.
Yeah, it's just a mess. And I think the Fantastic Four should be one of the easiest superhero teams to put together. And once again, mentioned The Incredibles before. I think that's a really excellent, really beautiful way that they were able to create that family team dynamic and make it play out and make it work.
It's coming back! That wasn't right. Give me that!
Can't stop it. The only thing hard enough to penetrate it is itself.
It's getting closer! It doesn't work!
There's just something about that seems inescapable. Yeah. And I think one of the problems Josh Trank had is he really moved it away from that family dynamic. He made them so much more generic by trying to make this horror film.
I don't think that Josh Trank's Fantastic Four is the worst of the bunch, though.
I don't either.
I know a lot of people, I hadn't seen it for
I think
a long
the 1994 one's the best of the bunch, though.
Which is fucking wild. I mean, it's like best because it's so bad. It was bad. I feel bad. I mean, like this is like one of the first original teams.
Yeah.
And most storied. There's lots of story to tell from them.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we have 3 movies of their origins and nothing.
Right.
So it's cursed.
It is. And I think it's a property that for some reason just doesn't seem to be able to be adapted. I do have one more film that I didn't particularly like, but I don't think it's the worst. It's this Russian superhero movie that came out this year, with 4 Soviet superheroes teaming up to save Moscow from destruction, and it's just really badly done. It's all badly handled. It's called The Guardians, and one of them has like rock powers, one of them is like water powers but can turn invisible, one of them is like super fast but kind of controls the wind. He's a martial artist, and one of them can turn into a bear.
Love that.
Super strong bear. And it was really kind of a culture shock to watch it because like it's very clearly influenced by Western American superhero movies, but at the same time, like
Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yeah, if you watch an American superhero movie, like if they destroy a city, it's a big deal. Like that's one of the things in Civil War. Civil War is because of what happened in Sokovia during Age of Ultron. In The Guardians, in the end, like they're trying to stop the villain from destroying Moscow and taking over the world. He succeeds in destroying Moscow as they beat him. And then, like, there's, like, a montage of, like, news stuff, and then Moscow's just rebuilt, and nobody's, like, talking about it. And it just felt to me like a very Russian, it's like, we've done this before.
It's fine.
Yeah, this is our history. It's fine. We're fine. And that was such a culture shock to me. I was like, what? But yeah.
You're like, sure, Jan.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, let's move into our fast forward.
So Justice League just came out.
Yes.
And it's garbage.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. They tried, and I will say
for that movie, could you tell the obvious reshoots? Because that's I've heard a lot of people say that.
It's weird because I was on mustache duty. I was just like looking for the mustache. So Henry Cavill had to come back to do reshoots. He had grown this mustache for Mission Impossible 6.
Yeah.
And so literally every time I saw him on screen, I was like, that does look a little weird. His upper lip looks a little weird. I don't know. I think the movie, Ezra Miller has a lot to do, unfortunately. I like him a lot, but like, it's kind of like they pulled him aside and said, hey, everything you do, just make it like funny and weird and be like kooky. And it's just like so uneven. I will say, Aquaman is cool. Mara was cool. Seeing Amber Heard. And they have a movie coming out, I guess, soon, which is cool. Cyborg was just like the Eeyore of the group, and also
I mean, he looks bad just from the trailers.
I mean, it's weird. At the end of the movie, they kind of like, look, and he has like now like an actual chest.
Oh,
and so
good.
like, he like, whatever. Gal Gadot's great. Ben Affleck is the most uncomfortable Batman I've ever seen in my life. Henry Cavill is the most gorgeous human being I've ever seen in my life. So yeah, I mean, it was nice, like, when they all line up on top of whatever. Yeah. I'm like, oh, they do look good. I can see, Warner Bros. Being like, yes, this looks like an Avengers team. Or, Justice League team.
And not that we really do too much TV here, but the first 3 episodes of The Runaways, which is, Marvel's new Hulu show, which is weird because they have such a big contract with Netflix, dropped this week. We both watched it. I don't want to speak for you. I found it to be a little slow, and I'm not loving it in comparison to the comic books at the moment. But we are only 3 episodes in.
Yeah, I love the comic books.
Yeah,
like, this may be one of my favorite comic books I've ever read. It's a little slow, but the characters, like the kids themselves, are engaging enough.
Yeah, and I like the actress playing the kids. I really like Gert a lot. Mm-hmm. I'm excited to see where they go with it, but also I'm worried about the languid pace and just like getting to it. And also, I don't give a shit about the parents.
The parents are really like, I don't want to see them.
Yeah. I don't care if one of them is Spike from Buffy. I really don't.
No.
Before we move into just talking about other stuff, but superhero teams, I do want to give a shout out. Famous superhero movie hater Dan Wahlberg was kind enough to supply me of a list of films that neither of us could find, unfortunately.
Okay.
But like, I do want to point out superhero movies, superhero teams are not a new thing for any, other nations outside of the US as well. To Samson and the Mighty Challenge from 1964, which is actually a Hercules movie from Italy.
Cool.
Is a team up movie. I did want to point out Conan the Destroyer from 1984, which is the second Conan movie starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, in which he ends up teaming up with Wilt Chamberlain and Grace Jones and Mako. Like,
excuse me?
Yeah, it's a nuts movie. It's not good. It's but
Wilt isn't good.
Yeah, I know, shocking. And then like there's just this run of Filipino superhero movies.
Oh, I love that.
And I wish I could find any of them. There's a very popular one from 1995 called Batang X. It's a group of 5 children with superhuman potential kidnapped by Dr. Axis, an alien stranded on Earth with her spaceship. She needs her powers in order to steal material, in order to get back off the planet. There's a TV sequel that just started airing a couple of years ago over there. There's a Super Neope from 2006. 6 childhood friends discover their parents are legendary Super Neope, the most powerful superheroes in the land, but the parents are taken hostage. The 6 have to form together to save them. Okay. There's Super Juan Tutri, which I believe is actually a comedy, but also from the Philippines, filmed in Tagalog. It's from 85. So like I said, these are not necessarily new things.
Totally.
And then one that I really wanted to find is a South Korean film called, and I'm going to butcher this, so please be kind to me, Sam Jung-seong, which is an alien scientist escapes from his planet and finds his way to Earth. However, he is followed by evil Joanna and her gang on Earth. And it's a team movie. And if anybody can find any of these movies, please, point me in the direction of them.
That reminds me, I guess we didn't mention if there's a Sailor Moon movie, Voltron, stuff. Totally.
I was going to say that the team aspect's not anything new for most other countries, but it seems to be the current bread and butter of American cinema.
Totally, especially with new technology.
I was actually hoping to find some Bollywood movies, and I could not. So, but I do know that they're big over there.
What do we have to look forward to as far as like Marvel things or like DC things? I guess we have Infinity War coming.
We have Infinity War. I don't know. I'm incredibly cautious about Infinity War because there's so many ways to fuck it up. And I think part of that is leaning on the sort of like, did you pay attention? Do you know everything? And I worry about that. I think they're okay directors. I don't think the Russo directors are like amazing directors. And that worries me because this is a big fucking movie. To quote Joe Biden, it's a big fucking deal.
It will be bigger than Civil War, but I think they handled Civil War.
I do.
Very well.
I don't think Civil War is the best looking film, but I think they handled it well.
Right. But I think I will say Marvel maybe has now, Guardians of the Galaxy 2 looked amazing.
It was really lush. And that was partially because what's his face, the director, really pushed them.
James Gunn
really pushed them to start using new cameras and new lighting techniques in a way that they had been forcing everybody to do all along, and him being like, no, let's try something different.
Yeah. And I think, especially after seeing Thor 3, with Taika Waititi,
who also really injected a lot of color and a lot of Jack Kirby into it.
Right.
Yeah.
It looked like a comic.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping all these things are coming together. And for me, mostly Marvel movies are getting better and better.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure we'll suffer like a really bad movie once in a while. Like, they can't all be fucking great, and that's fine. I think them splitting the movie up into 2 parts is smart.
Yes.
And so for now, I'm optimistic. I think all the parts are in place. But I think what excites me the most is that this very much feels like the natural end to this big world that they've created. And so, like, Robert Downey Jr. is like 55 years old now.
Yeah.
And he, like, thank you so much for all your service.
Yeah.
Like, it's time for rest. I think Chris Evans is fucking done being Captain America.
Yeah. I think he was done after the second movie, but
like, and I think I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm they will finish all this shit up, and then
they're gonna have to recast, and that's the thing. And
I'm not even thinking about recasting. I'm thinking about like, all right, let's bring in some more fucking Black Panther people and like other people that can like usher in this new age of like Avengers and shit.
Yeah.
I don't really need to see Captain America anymore. I don't need to see Iron Man anymore. And like, it'd be fun once in a while to have him pop in and say hi.
I was gonna say, that's never gonna happen though. I mean, in your wildest dreams, yes, but like,
maybe, I don't know.
Because as we mentioned at the top of the show, superhero teams were created to generate money.
Right. Marvel's not gonna like stop wanting to make money, but like, they're like, okay.
I would love that. Marvel's like, we've decided to not make more money.
Bye. But like, they made Ant-Man, and there's a new Ant-Man movie coming out, and Black Panther, and so there's all these like other, they're not like wanting for characters.
Right.
And so I think Doctor Strange has just appeared on our radar.
I'll be honest, if we're moving in an era in which we have these big team up movies, I don't want to go to movies where I don't care about that. Yeah. And I want, like, need that. And that's one of the things that I love about X2. And as I mentioned before,
you care about all of them. Yeah.
Yeah. I just really hope, like, if we're moving towards this, more character work, I forgot one, a movie that I love. And just real quick, right before the end, if it counts as a super team, Monster Squad. Not because of the kids as a super team, but an evil team. So Monster Squad is filmed in the 1980s, in which basically the Universal Studios Monsters goes after a group of kids. It's like Dracula wants to destroy the world, and he gets himself a gill man, he gets himself a werewolf, he gets himself a mummy, he brings Frankenstein's monster back to life, and he's gonna ruin everything. But Frankenstein's monster turns on him. And it's so fucking good. It was originally written as the sequel to Goonies. And they decided not to go, they were like, we don't really want to go a supernatural route. It's one of my favorite October movies. So yeah, you should watch Monster Squad.
That will be on my list.
Yeah, it's so good. Famous quotes: Wolfman's got nards.
Nards?
Nards.
I don't know that.
Kick him in the nose! Kick him in the nose! He doesn't have nards! Do it! Wolfman's got nards! Come on!
Well, how can we top that?
Yeah.
How can we top nards?
I don't think we can. So yeah, that has been this issue. That has been this episode of the Mixed Reviews. If you want to find us online, if you want to correct us or tell us we're doing an amazing job or just get in on the conversation, you can find us at the Mixed Reviews at twitter.com.
On Facebook, we're the Mixed Reviews.
And you can also email us at reviewsmixed@gmail.com.
And we're like everywhere. You can find us on iTunes, SoundCloud,
Stitcher Radio,
Google Play
Music. And if you are listening to us on iTunes, please feel free to drop by the store and rate and review us, because it helps other people find our lovely voices.
You can just also leave a comment how sexy we sound.
Yeah.
Because we have voices for...
Thanks, Mom.
But that's not weird.
But yeah, we're going to go away for 2 weeks. We're going to decide on another topic. We'll be back mid-December, and I will come back from my first European trip.
Oh my god. I've never been. I'm really jealous.
Yeah.
All right, bye guys.
Bye.
I'm living in that 21st century, doing something mean to it. Do it better than anybody you ever seen. Do it. Scream from the haters, got a nice ring to it. I guess every superhero need his theme